So today I'm going to tell a little bit about my story, since I know I had mentioned it here kind of in our little community last week, and in my effort to be more consistent. Plus, it's going to be some things that you'll start seeing posted about with just really more for information kind of stuff, in case maybe you know somebody, because when I started down this kind of journey, I didn't know what the world, I just had no clue. I just started noticing symptoms. And so now that it's been 2.5 years, and I'm like, there's some reasons for it. Okay, so let me see if I was going to try and get this over to our group, but I don't know how to get it to go there. So I don't know how to, here we go. I'm learning. Anyway, I hope you're having a fabulous Tuesday. Most of you, if you're seeing this, you're catching the replay, and I'm going to try and keep this somewhat short, but I just thought I would kind of share my story and the whole reason behind it. Like, I was like, why? Why? And what I keep feeling like the reason would be is that if it can help one person figure out, and again, this is my story. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any medical background. This is just my story and what I've experienced. But in my research, as I've been trying to figure things out and sort of self-diagnose before I went to the rheumatologist, I figured out a lot of things. And so just even having that knowledge, if that can point someone in the right direction of how to do their research and who they need to go see, I just figured maybe it would be helpful. So plus we can have, I'm just going to chat. Okay, let's see. Let me get this over to, how do I do this here? Okay. I'm going to try and do it here. Sorry, 1 second. I am not used to using, no, it's not there. Okay. There we go. Great. Okay. So anyway, I hope you're having a fabulous Tuesday. And okay, so I was going to write stuff out, and then I realized I can't do that because then I'll basically read it. So I'm not going to do that. And I may forget a couple things, but I'm just going to go with it and just kind of share. So you can kind of hear just some of the things that, some of the things that have to do with the autoimmune stuff that I have going on. And honestly, before it was classified as autoimmune, I really didn't know a whole lot about that. I really didn't. And some of these things that I realized I was dealing with, once I knew that's what they were, I didn't before. I just didn't know it was considered an autoimmune disease. Anyway, so it's probably January 2 years ago. The years kind of run together. Anyway, well, actually, let me first off, so I'm hypothyroid, which I've been so when Mike and I got married, goodness, how many years ago? 23 years ago. And we moved to Alabama, went military, and I just started not feeling great. And so way back then, thankfully, Lord willing, I had a great PA who was able to figure out right away what was going on. And it was Hashimoto's hypothyroid. And that was great. Got me on what I needed, medicine that I needed to be on. And I've been on that for a while. And I know everybody has a different opinion about different things. And anyway, that is what's worked for me. It's helped me feel good. Hey, mama. And so I've been on that for a long time, but I had no clue. I just found out a month ago that apparently is an autoimmune disease. I didn't know being hypothyroid was autoimmune. Anyway, so now I know that. But then probably even 4 years ago or so, I started noticing every once in a while my little pinky would change color and go numb. If I got cold, if I was in the grocery store, or if it got a little chilly outside. And honestly, it didn't bother me. I don't want to say I thought it was funny, but I just thought, oh, that's interesting. It was just, different. But I noticed over time, over the last couple years, it's gotten worse and worse the older I've gotten. And in talking with different people that, I've met, just different areas of my life, come to find out that is called Raynaud syndrome, which has to do with the blood vessels in your hands closing down when your hands get somewhat cold. And everybody's different. I don't know. I haven't researched all of these things in detail, but what I have learned, and for myself, what I notice is if I get cold just too long, or what was it this morning? No, just a little bit ago at lunch, I was cutting a cold apple, and I could tell, the apple was cold. I was holding, and I could tell I was getting, I was starting to lose feeling. So had to hurry up, finish the apple. But if I'm going through the grocery store and it's really cold, it just depends on that amount of time. The first time I really realized, this is an issue. Not that it's an issue, but that it really bothered me. It was probably about last year. I was in the middle of Aldi, and I was walking through the grocery store doing my normal thing, And I could tell it was happening. I was like, okay, I got to get out of the grocery store. Not a big deal. But then I went to go get the money out of my wallet, and I couldn't actually, it was really hard. I had to like, I was like, okay, I got to hurry up because this is really hard. You know, like when you're out in the snowstorm, hey, Melissa, like when you're out in a snowstorm and like your fingers go numb, you're like, oh my word, I can't feel it. It felt like that. And that was what cued me in of, okay, I gotta make sure I put gloves. I had a neighbor of mine who, when I was talking with her about it, she's like, oh yeah, I have that, that's Raynaud's. I was like, okay, that's what okay. And before I talked to her, I didn't even know that's what it was called. Anyway, so that is Raynaud's syndrome. I think that's classified as an autoimmune. I'm not even sure. But I do have that as well. So if you are someone who, like, your hands, and I took some pictures last winter because I thought, oh my word, this is bizarre. And I'll post sometime whenever it happens again. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. Like, that's why I love warm weather, because it doesn't happen a whole lot in the warmer weather unless I'm like in a cold grocery store or things like that. But my hands will go completely white, fingertips, and it's so bizarre. It's kind of comical. It's just very interesting. But in some of my research, what I found was if I have cypress oil on hand, no pun intended, I can use that, and that kind of helps get some circulation back. But really just trying to stay warm, that helps with that. So that's Raynaud's syndrome. That, is something else that found out through all this, like that kind of is a cousin to some of these other things. So thyroid, Raynaud's, and then it was, okay, so about 2 years ago in January, with what I was doing here in the shop, I was standing a lot. And so when my feet started hurting, I thought, why are my feet hurting? I'm wearing the wrong shoes. I need to not be standing so much. And it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't go away. I couldn't wear my Old Navy flip-flops. And I love my Old Navy flip-flops because you can get them for $1. And I realized I can't wear those anymore. That wasn't going to happen. So anyway, couldn't walk. And I grew up walking barefoot all around. I used to run across stone, like no big deal. And so now I couldn't go barefoot even in my house. If I did, I always have to wear slippers that have some kind of padding on them. And if I'm walking through my house for more than 5 or 10 minutes with no slippers or anything on, it just, and my feet hurt really bad. But anyway, so that kept getting a little worse. It was concerning, but I was like, well, I don't know why my feet hurt so bad. And I think that was kind of the beginning of some rheumatoid arthritis stuff. And then, because then I started noticing, and you can't really tell a whole lot. I notice it because they're my hands. We all live with our own hands. But I can tell, my knuckles started to get really big here. And in my research found that when they're symmetrical, that is usually signs of rheumatoid arthritis. And then I would get little nodules here in my hands here, and then on my elbows, I don't know if you can see that, it comes out of it. Anyway, so it's just weird when you see this stuff happening. So, and I tried to really manage some of the stuff, started researching just all these different things. Last year, right around this time, it was right before Christmas, and I really started thinking, okay, I got to take care of my joints, my bones, what's going on, and started really just kind of, again, researching, and found, okay, well, let me try, because I love doctors and I think God gave them to us and they have so much knowledge. I'm just one of those people that is not my first go-to. I just don't run to the doctor. And so I wanted to do everything that I could do at home. So I thought, okay, well, let me change up my diet. So it was around Christmas time, and I kept seeing this this theme of, okay, sugar and gluten and all of that. Okay, well, let me try that. Let me try cutting out the sugar. Let me try cutting out the gluten. And so I was, I don't know, a couple weeks. Oh, and then I heard coffee. Coffee wasn't good. And I'm on this journey. I may find out later, hey, coffee's not an issue. From some of the things that I've learned, that it can affect your adrenal glands, which I know that somehow is involved. So again, this is a process. I'm still learning, and I don't know it all. But so I just remember I went cold turkey off coffee. I thought, well, let me cut that out. And I think the reason what propelled me to go to this extreme of, okay, let's cut out all coffee, let's cut out all sugar, let's cut out all gluten, was because I started waking up. It was last fall, because we were in the middle of cross country, and I remember waking up one night and I could not feel my arm. I forget which arm it was. But when you were a little kid, and you can tell me if this has ever happened to you, so just tell me in the comments. Have you ever woken up as a little, you slept on your arm wrong, or you slept on something wrong, and you woke up and you couldn't feel it, and it was pins and needles, and you just kept hitting it until it would come back? It was that kind of feeling, but it was from my elbow. I think it was my left arm. It was from my elbow the whole way to my, I could not feel my arm, the whole thing, and it just it really scared me. That was the first time that I really was okay, I thought maybe I slept on it wrong, but I knew I wasn't sleeping on it wrong. And so I couldn't, I was hitting it. I was trying to get it to move and it just wouldn't. So like I got up, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, got up, just trying to move around and finally was able to get some feeling back in my arm. So after that is when I really kind of made me dive in. I'm thinking, okay, my feet hurt, my hands hurt. Now I can't feel, like what's going on? So that's kind of why I went, okay, well, let's just try cutting some of this stuff out and see what kind of a difference it makes. And so, when you're pretty much eating what you want. I mean, I had tried to cut out as much, last year, I guess, was the beginning of cutting some of that stuff out. And so I started noticing a little bit of a difference, still had, some issues, but then we were coming into Christmas and I thought, oh man, I mean, who wants to cut out sugar and gluten and coffee? And I think, so we were at home on Christmas and we didn't travel last year, but then we had family coming down to visit over New Year's. And I was like, well, I'm not going to not have, I love to cook, I love to bake, and I love having warm coffee with my mom and my sister when they come. So I thought, okay, well, I remember at Christmas, and I thought, okay, so I'm just going to let myself kind of not be as strict during the holiday, during Christmas and during New Year's. And so I remember it was Christmas Eve was a Monday, and I thought I had up until this point, because I had cut stuff out, I wasn't doing any baking, and I thought, I want to make memories for my boys. So I had asked everybody, okay, what's your favorite cookie? So I was going to line up, make all of the different cookies, and I like to always make a birthday cake for Jesus. And so even though my kids are big, we still do that, and I love it. And so of course, when you bake, what do? You like to taste. You like to, especially when they come out of the oven. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let myself not worry about it. And so, of course, I probably overdid it because I would say I'm a sugar-holic. Is that a word? But that's kind of where I've been. I mean, I used to have ice cream every night. I love ice cream. And so I then woke up Christmas morning. I think it was Christmas. No, it wasn't Christmas morning. Then Christmas Day, again, we had Mexican food, like ate all the things and just didn't worry about what I couldn't have, what I wasn't going to let myself have. Had the coffee with the, like all of the things. And then I woke up the next day, middle of the night. Couldn't believe the so I had kind of weaned myself off. I was able to kind of sleep a little bit before like Christmas Eve. And the day after Christmas, it was like my body was on fire. Couldn't feel my arms, and it just like all hit. And I just remember that it was that Wednesday and thinking, okay, I know people are coming in town, but I got to do something different. This, I don't know what to do. And I think I remember at that point, and Mom, I don't know if you remember this, and I think I still let myself have some coffee while they were here. I can't remember all the little details, but I just remember being very clear. Okay, cutting out the sugar and gluten was making a big difference. Now, the amount that I needed to cut it out, I don't know. I'm still figuring that out, which I'll get to. But so then it was right before January. I was like, okay, no gluten, no sugar, not doing it. And so for the most part, I've cut it out. I mean, I wasn't to the degree, like I would let myself have oats, and I'm sure some oats have gluten. Like I wasn't that rigid with it, but in general, I just tried to cut it all out. We went on some trips, I'd go visit family, and I would let myself, I say cheat, that's not really the right word, because I kind of switched my lifestyle to no sugar, no gluten, just to try and manage like the symptoms and deal with that. And so then, what I was finding is a couple days of having that stuff wasn't too bad if I didn't overdo it. And I think that was my problem last year, Christmas, I overdid it. Anyway, so going through then spring and summer, and started noticing, like, it just started to get a little worse, just as far as like the achiness, and my hands would hurt. Like if I would hit my finger like on a hand, or like on the table or something, it would be like, I remember my dad and I would compare pain of like arthritic pain. And again, so at this time I still hadn't gone to the doctor. And anyway, so then fast forward to the end of the summer, and just some of the stuff that I was starting to not feel great about. And I was talking to a friend, and some of the things she was telling me, I say it scared me, but it just made me realize I should go to the doctor so I know what I'm dealing with, even if I want to try and do things naturally versus just going on all the medicine. Let's find out what it is. Let's get the wisdom. God's given him wisdom. So made that appointment, and went and saw a rheumatologist, found a really great doctor near here. And so when I went in, I was able to like write out my whole story, all the things that I've experienced, all of my symptoms, all the things that I've done. And I was like, okay, this is what I got. So after blood work, after x-rays, and I was thinking, okay, I think it's rheumatoid arthritis. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so after x-rays that, obviously I've got a little bit of things going on, but it didn't show rheumatoid arthritis. I was like, well, okay. So we waited for blood work, and thankfully, she's great, and she knew to test for other things that are like cousins, because all these things are sort of related. And it came back that I have Sjögrens, which I had never heard of until 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. And so basically what Sjögrens is an autoimmune disease, and it basically your body starts attacking the salivary glands. So like all of the moisture produced, like mostly like in your eyes and your throat, which makes sense because one of the other things that I had noticed, so I had made my appointment, but I couldn't get in for like a month and a half. And one of the things that I had noticed was sometimes it would get really hard for me to swallow. We were at a restaurant one time and I was like, I could swallow, but I could tell that it felt like something was blocking me or not allowing me to swallow. So that kind of scared me. And like sometimes my throat will get raspy, which means I'm probably not drinking enough, which it's fall day. So I need to be drinking some tea. Anyway, so I was like, oh, okay. Because I had not noticed the signs of what Sjögrens was. Again, I've got typically allergies with my eyes. And so I just figured like if my contacts were messing up, that it was just allergies were messing with my eyes. Now I realize it was dry eyes. So gained a little bit of wisdom there too. So it also makes sense too why I was, and not necessarily over the last 2 years, but I would say just in the last several months, being really, really tired. But what mom of 3 teenagers would not be tired? We all of us get tired all the time. So it wasn't like a huge red flag. And so now that I kind of know what I'm looking at and can read about it, and I think, hopefully, and Lord willing, it will slow down and it won't progress. So I'm trying to just change some things continually in my diet. So there's my train of thought here. Okay, so went to the rheumatologist, then went to a functional medicine doctor who she recommended doing the autoimmune paleo diet, which if you're familiar with that at all, the paleo diet is basically meat, vegetable, like organic meat, if you can do that, vegetables and fruit, basically no dairy, no gluten, no grains of any kind, and then stay away from nightshades. So if you're someone who does deal with inflammation, maybe you have if you have arthritis or any other kind of inflammatory nightshades, which I just learned about this last year, are potatoes, tomatoes, eggplant, what else? Peppers, all that kind of stuff. Not great. They're all inflammatory. So since I would say the middle, or once I figured out what Sjögrens, once they said, oh, okay, it's Sjögrens, I, of course, thank you to Dr. Google, hopped online and found out, what the best, how do you deal with this, without having to go on medicine. And so, of course, she did recommend medicine, and I did try that. It didn't necessarily work. It did not work great for me. I did not feel good on it after about 2 weeks. So I've come off of that, and I'm trying to deal with everything, just through my eating and, that kind of stuff. So, I've changed what I'm eating and finding that it is helping. I've also started taking CBD oil, which I think that is helping as well, and just kind of trying to manage all of that. So some of the other things that I think is interesting, and again, it could just be living life, all of, how many people don't have foggy brain, they're tired, all of that, but I'm like, oh, that's why sometimes I just can't concentrate. It's brain fog. Now there's an actual reason for it. Or now it makes sense why I can, if I'm feeling good, and actually exercise is supposedly really good to keep yourself moving and just to, because chronic pain and fatigue, is one of the bigger things that a lot of Sjögren's patients or Sjögren's people will have, and everybody is different. So some people might have one symptom more than another, but it makes sense now why I can feel great running, if I can muster up the energy to go do it, but then I might walk up a flight of stairs and feel like I need to sit down because my legs are going to give out. That kind of makes sense now. At least there's a reason for it. It's never going to be an excuse, but at least I understand now. And it was actually interesting. So this past weekend we went mountain bike riding, and it was so much fun. Y'all know, Melissa, Mom, if you're still there, we love to go do things. And so we went mountain bike riding, and it was a lot of fun, but it took a lot of, I'm not super strong. I want to be stronger, but I was trying to hang on to this bike and keep up with my guys. And it was hang on and don't lose grip or I'll fly off the bike. Anyway, and I did good. I did great. But one of the things that I noticed, and as I'm in a couple different groups with just to ask questions, to learn more about Sjögrens, is the extreme exhaustion when you're done. I felt like, so that was Saturday morning, and then, hey Mary, how are you? You'll have to go back and watch from the beginning, just kind of see the progression. Maybe you'll know somebody that would help. And that's the only reason why I'm doing this. If you have a friend that starts saying, yeah, I feel this, or yeah, I feel that, maybe my story can shed some light on it. Because as I was trying to figure everything out, I was like, I have no idea. I had no idea. So anyway, but I woke up Saturday night into Sunday and then all day Sunday. I felt like when I ran a half marathon 5 or 6 years ago, that's what I felt like. And I was like, oh. So come to find out though, that's how some people find out that they even have Sjögren's. So sometimes what I'm seeing and reading is that these other symptoms are ones that manifest before necessarily the dry eyes and the dry mouth and what Sjögren's is known for, but there's so many other symptoms that go along with it that aren't necessarily classified with it, but a lot of people have them. So extreme exhaustion, like some athletes, like that's their sign of, I was so exhausted. I had no idea what was going on. So they went in and, figured it out. So, but a lot of times it takes people years and years to figure out and to actually get a diagnosis for whether it's thyroid or Sjögren's or any of that. So I'm very thankful that I was able to at least figure that out. So Lord willing, I'll be able to continue, just managing everything naturally. Again, the medicine they had me on, I did not feel great on it, but, one day at a time. It's a journey, right? We're all on a different journey. We all have a different story. And so I just wanted to share mine. Sorry, an alarm just went off. Science live lesson or something's coming up for the boys. And that is a huge blessing too. The boys are doing Connections Academy, so that's freed up a little bit of my time. And so I'm so thankful for that. But so I'm doing the autoimmune paleo diet right now. I've been on it since sort of beginning of October, but I would say really by the middle of October. So, and with that's a whole other, it's kind of like one step above paleo, but you cut all this stuff out. It's basically an elimination diet. You cut everything out, and then you start bringing things back in to see, like, can you handle this? Can your body handle it, or do you, have a reaction type thing? So I think I'm going to be good, because I was doing kind of the gluten-free, sugar-free for that whole, this past year. Just really thought, well, maybe if I cut even more out, it will help with the symptoms. So I'm curious and hoping that as I bring things back in, like eggs and what else do I really want to bring back in? I think I'm going to go with eggs. I have to research. I don't know if there's a certain order of certain things you should do first. I really have no idea. So I need to look that up. But I think I'm going to try eggs and see how I do with that. And then I want to see if I can have butter. If I can't, that's fine. I can do coconut oil and then almonds, because in the last year, I was doing a lot of cooking and baking with almond flour, but paleo, AIP, you're not supposed to have any almond, any nuts, that kind of thing. So anyway, we shall see. And hopefully we can bring some of that stuff back in to make it easier to cook. Twice now, maybe 3 times, I've tried to make pancakes. I made pancakes for all the boys this morning. And there's just not a great version of pancake that I have found. So if somebody down the road later is watching this and you have a great pancake recipe, share it, because I would love to have one. So anyway, that's my story. And I just thought I would share that here. And if you know somebody that it could help, then spread the word, share it, and just stay tuned. So some of the stuff that you'll be seeing, if I make a recipe that's actually really yummy, some of them that I make just are not. They just aren't. But I have found some great recipes, and they are super healthy because they don't have the sugar, they don't have the gluten. So, maybe you're not cutting it out all completely, but some of these are really yummy, like the bacon and Brussels from yesterday. Love that. So even if I didn't need to be gluten-free, sugar-free, all that, I would still eat that. And then some soups and stuff that I found. So when you see recipes and stuff posted like that, you'll know why. So anyway, lots of fun with, just different threads that get woven into our shop. So I say shop, but community really is the better word. So